Hello, so this is my Tuesday evening session, answering any health-related questions that you want to ask, which I'm doing for free during the lockdown to support people with their health. And to start off with, I'm going to talk a little bit about skin problems. I've had a lot of people asking me about the causes of skin problems and how to heal them recently. Very common problem, so I thought for 5 or 10 minutes while people are joining, I'll talk about skin problems. Very common, not in general, not that well understood by Western medicine, and not always, but in not very effective treatments with Western medicine. And I think that is because the different in Eastern traditional, often complementary medicine and more modern Western medicine. Modern Western medicine often is much more focused. Oriental medicine looks at the bigger picture more holistically. The skin problem is considered to be a problem with the skin. But with a more holistic way of looking. If we have a skin problem, actually it's a reflection of what is happening inside the body with other organs. So just working on the skin with with creams, with sometimes antibiotics and so on, very often doesn't help people long term. I've seen a lot of people with really long-term skin problems, which haven't cleared up with all kinds of different creams and drugs and so on, which they've been able to heal when they understand the causes of the problem and how to change those. So we have to. One thing is we have to understand that the skin is an avenue of discharge from the body. So if we eat an excess of anything, the body wants to get rid of it, and one of the ways it gets rid of it is through the skin. So if we eat excess fats or oil, so we know that if we eat a lot of oil, we can get a very oily skin. Excess protein, and if we eat a lot of protein, which means more eating animal protein, because it's difficult to eat too much protein when it's plant protein. So if we're eating a lot of meat, cheese and so on, our body becomes much more smelly. That's because the skin is discharging various breakdown chemicals from breaking down proteins, breaking down amino acids. If we eat too much sugars, that will also so too much of anything, and that will tend to come out through the skin. And so that's, in some ways, that's a very good thing, because if we're eating too many of those things, if they accumulate inside the body, they cause problems. So naturally, the body wants to get rid of them. So you may well have experienced eating maybe some dairy foods, and then you get some mucus spots. Or you eat very sugary foods, and you get some more redness or a rash or pimples or something like that happening somewhere on your body. So this is the discharge, which basically is a good thing. However, sometimes people get chronic, which means long-term skin problems, developing problems like eczema, psoriasis, boils, acne, etc. And this is where the body is in a kind of chronic state of discharge. And this particularly happens when the other organs, the other excretory organs in the body, are not working well. So the other excretory organs in the body are the intestines, and especially the large intestine, which is getting rid of more solid waste. The kidneys, which are getting rid of more liquid waste. The liver, which is really processing all the foods that we eat, and is controlling those and getting rid of some of them in the bile. And also the lungs, which are breathing out certain waste through the moisture and through the air. So if those 4 organs are working well, then we tend to have a healthy skin. And if one or more of those is unhealthy and is not excreting well, or has been overwhelmed by the amount of excess sugars, fats, proteins that someone is eating, then we start getting skin problems. In Oriental medicine, they particularly link the lungs with the skin. The lungs are sending Qi through the skin, helping the health of the skin and also helping to protect the body. So they make a particularly strong link with the lungs, but I think with some people also, if the liver, kidneys and intestines are struggling, then that's very likely to show up in the skin. So if we think about that in a little bit more detail, and look at a few particular skin problems. So thank you for those who've joined. I'm going to say hello to you all in a minute when I finish this bit and start looking at your questions. So, for example, if the lungs aren't working well, then and maybe the large intestine, people may develop eczema. And in macrobiotic terms, this usually comes from eating more yin foods, a lot of sugary, sweet foods, and maybe light dairy foods, which produce an excess in the body, which then starts coming out through the skin, and it often produces more like eczema. Really means inflammation, some redness, often some wetness. Pretty common on the hands, sometimes the face and other parts of the body. Often on the kind of the inside of the body, armpits, back of the knees, inside of the elbows, these damp places. I've seen many people with eczema, and when they cut down on these foods, eat a more balanced whole food, and really cut down on sugary foods and sweets, eating even too much fruit, especially dried fruits and tropical fruits, contain a lot of sugars. They can really aggravate problems like eczema. Getting sweetness more from sweet vegetables, and maybe a little cooked fruit, but not too much fruit, and stressing more whole grains. In Oriental medicine, especially short grain brown rice and root vegetables strengthen the lungs and help the skin. Also minerals from seaweeds and soups, miso soup, shoyu broth, herb salt soups, etc. These will help strengthen the lungs, and then that helps the skin. So I've seen a lot of people clear up eczema. Another quite common problem, psoriasis, very often on the elbows and the knees, more on these dry parts of the body, and quite different. Not so much red and inflamed, more the skin becomes thick and often white because it's overproducing skin cells, and this flakes off, and people can have quite big areas on their legs or their elbows. So this comes in macrobiotics. We call this more of a yang problem. It comes particularly from eating a lot of animal protein and fats, from things like cheese, meat, chicken, and as well as the lungs not being in good condition, especially the liver is often really struggling to process all of those animal fats and protein. Because the liver can't deal with it all, there's too much in the bloodstream. Whatever there's too much of in the bloodstream starts coming out through the skin. So that's kind of a couple of examples. Acne, similar thing with acne. Always I see a lung, intestine are in an unhealthy state. So that means eating a healthy diet, getting the intestines healthy, getting the lungs healthy. Some people are very prone to boils, where the sebaceous glands, which we naturally have on the upper part of our body to moisten our skin, stop it drying out in the sun. Those glands become blocked, and then the pus builds up underneath the surface, and then we have a boil, which then may erupt and burst, and the pus comes out. Again, that's because of these eating, especially a lot of fatty, oily, greasy, deep-fried kind of foods, which get stuck deep in the skin. So before I got into macrobiotics, my early 20s, got into macrobiotics at the age of 24. A couple of years before then, I became vegetarian, but I would eat a big block of cheese every week. I love the stuff. That was my main protein. Cheese sandwiches, cheese on toast, cauliflower cheese, cheese in everything. And I would regularly get boils on the back of my neck, and sometimes other places. And then when I started the macrobiotic diet, no more boils. So I hope this gives you, like something that we study more deeply on various courses here at the school, to understand how really a skin problem means there are problems deeper in the body, especially with those 4 organs: the lungs, large intestine, liver and kidney. And what we need to do is improve the health of those organs, and then the skin will no longer be getting that excess and needing to excrete that through the skin, causing skin problems. So maybe you have some questions about skin problems or any other health problems. I'd be very glad to talk about. So nice to have you here again, Christine and Rita and Naomi and Alexandra and Amal. Patricia, you suffer from light eruption. You've had this on and off in the summer for 30 years. Started in the sun, you had your son. The only relief you get is from homeopathy. Well, that's good that you found relief. So the sun draws substances to the surface of the skin. And I think this is one reason why we enjoy being in the sun. It actually has a cleansing effect because it draws materials, excess, to the surface of the skin, and then we sweat it out. I guess this is also the thing with Turkish baths and saunas and so on as well. We're getting rid of toxins through the skin. But there may be something in your diet that is also contributing to this problem, so that in the sun something is getting sucked to the surface of the skin, especially in macrobiotic terms, something more inside. Sugars, an excess of sugars, or tropical fruits, or dried fruits, sugary foods, maybe certain oils, maybe certain chemicals in foods. It would be good to kind of look through your diet in a lot of detail and see if there's something there that is getting drawn to your skin by the sun and then creating these problems. So if you've got further questions about that, then do get back. So nice to have you here, Zvonka and Joanne. Missing seeing you. Hope we're going to see you again sometime. So you're asking about CBD oil. I don't know a lot about it. So this is cannabis oil. I'm wondering what you're interested in about it in relation to skin problems or to other problems. Maybe you could elaborate, and then I might be able to say a bit more. So Alex, makes total sense. Dark spots on the back of the hand. I'm just wondering if I've got any of those. Don't think I've got any particular. In English, they're sometimes called liver spots. Well, it depends what size of spot you mean. If you're meaning like really small kind of moles, that's one thing. But something is a liver spots, which are more big, maybe 0.5 centimeter or 1 centimeter. So interesting, in English, they're called liver spots. And something that happens very often as people get older, in the second half of their life, because Typically in the West, we're eating dairy foods and meats and sugars and all kinds of excess. So of course this builds up in the body as we get older and then can create increasing problems. So if we've spent a lifetime eating a reasonable amount of animal foods, this overwhelms the liver and it can't deal with the amount of fats and proteins and so on it's getting. And so it's in the bloodstream, and if it's in the bloodstream, then it starts coming out through the skin. And one of the things it can produce are these kind of larger, kind of dark areas on the skin, often on the hands, sometimes on the face, back, etc. as well. So Amal, you're saying very useful for your skin problem, so that's good. Bianca, you're asking about rosacea. I guess in English that's what we call rosacea, which is a strong redness, often in the face, often neck and chest and other parts of the body as well. In Oriental medicine, this is being created by a lot of heat, a lot of internal heat in the body, rising up and coming out through the skin. And one of the organs that produces the most heat in the body is the liver. So it's very commonly the liver that when we hold a lot of tension in our liver, then a lot of heat can accumulate in the liver, and then we can get a kind of permanent deep redness in parts of the face, neck, chest, etc. So the question is, why do we build up that tension and heat in the liver? It may be through eating certain foods, particularly heating foods, and foods which create kind of stagnation in the liver are excess yang foods, we'd say in macrobiotics, excess meat, eggs, cheese, these very dense foods. Problems dealing with an excess of them. So that can create a lot of tension in the liver, and then that tension is continuously creating this excess heat. It can also be from holding a lot of emotion, repressing a lot of emotion inside. Because the liver in Oriental medicine is about, the function is to bring nutrients and energy out through our whole body, so we can move our muscles, move our bodies, express our emotions, express our creativity, etc. So if we're holding, what's the expression, biting our lips, holding our emotions in, then that can create a lot of heat in the liver as well. I once had a client who came to me quite a number of years ago, who a woman probably in her 40s, who had very marked rosacea on her cheeks, very red, you could see the veins in it, and she changed her diet to a very healthy, balanced diet, which helped a bit, and then it stopped improving. And so we kind of explored what was happening with her more, and she was in a very difficult situation in that she had a child, she had a husband who was not working and who would go off and do all kinds of, he was interested into all kinds of things in his head, but he wasn't bringing in any money, he wasn't helping with the household, he wasn't helping with childcare particularly, so she was having, and she was very, very frustrated and very sick of this. But for the sake of her child, she was continuing to do it for quite a long time. And then once I hadn't seen her for about 3 or 4 weeks, and she walked through the door to come for some shiatsu and some health advice, and it almost completely cleared up. So it was just very striking, and so I kind of guessed what might have happened. So I don't know if you can guess what happened to create a change. So she kicked him out, and then all of that frustration and anger and heat that she was carrying in the body dissipated, and then her rosacea cleared up in her face. was very interesting. Uh, it's one of the things which really interests me is how you can take a certain health problem like rosacea. In one person, the cause may be mostly dietary. In someone else, it may be mostly emotional. In someone else, it may be mostly lifestyle. Depending on, are they overworking, a lot of stress, not exercising, etc., etc. So we need to have a more holistic understanding and to explore the underlying causes of different health problems. So Rita, you're asking about acne. One way of looking at different skin problems, especially when there's kind of hardness or pussiness in the skin, is what depth are they in the skin. So sometimes we may have little pimples on the surface of the skin, little red, maybe little white tips, very much on the surface of the skin. So it's something that's really coming to the surface of the skin very easily. Other times it's much deeper in the skin. It's kind of deep under the skin, and it's kind of stuck in there. This is more like acne and boils, things happening more deeply in the skin. So the macrobiotic understanding, and I really think this is true from a lot of years of experience, is that if we're eating more yin foods, so this is more caffeine, milky coffees, sugary things, cakes, etc., this produces excess which very easily comes to the surface of the body. And so that can produce more pimples, or maybe rashes, red rashes on the skin because of the blood vessels or the blood capillaries swelling up. So these come to the surface of the skin and cause these more surface problems. Whereas if we're eating more yang foods, like more dense, heavy, then these get stuck more deeply in the skin. So things like a lot of deep fried foods, deep fried chicken, or cheese, fried eggs, fried bread, especially frying in animal fat. This all gets stuck more deeply in the skin and produces deeper problems like acne. Like I said before, what I also see is that very often people with acne also have a weakness and poor health in their lungs and large intestine. And Amal, you're asking about vitiligo, having these white areas on the skin. So I think this is a bit of a deeper problem. It tends to take quite a long time to develop, and I have seen a few people get some improvement in it, but it tends to take quite a length of time. And it tends to happen when people have eaten, like I was just saying, the stronger yin foods, which come up and out to the surface of the body. And some common places for getting it are on the hands, and often it's the fingertips, because yin foods come more to the extremities, so it comes up the arms to the maybe to the elbows a bit, but then especially the hands. Often it comes up to the face as well, sometimes to the kind of upper shoulders and back. This is where excess yin foods tend to go to. As I say, whether that's from caffeine or milky coffees or sugary foods or chocolate, sweets, Coca-Cola, etc. I think I remember hearing that vitiligo is more common in hotter climates as well. So in hotter climates, often there's a higher consumption of sugar and tropical fruits. When I was about 22 or 23, I had a great time spending a year in the Sudan in North Africa. and it was pretty hot. And on the corner of every market, there were some girls with food mixers, and they would put in ice, fruits, and sugar, and then they would whiz it up, and you got this really cold, sweet, fruity drink. And then the tea, they served very small glasses of bitter tea. They would have 5, 6, or 7 teaspoonfuls of sugar in that one little glass of tea, because the tea was kind of bitter. So there's this need for yin, cooling foods in the tropics. So sometimes people really overdo sugar and tropical fruits, and I think that is the reason why vitiligo is more common in those countries. So, I have some improvement, but it takes time. And Alex, you're asking about cracked skin on the heels. It seems to be a common problem. Sometimes very sore and painful. That's true. So while yin foods tend to come up in the body and affect the upper body, shoulders, back, face, head, hands, when we eat more heavy foods, these tend to go more down in the body. If we want to understand how much yin people are eating, then we can look at the hands. So just wondering how my hands are looking right now. So not too bad. So if people are eating a lot of yin foods, they tend to get very red fingertips. And if you look at the back of the hands, often the base of the nail is red and swollen. So this is a sign people are eating a lot of sugar, caffeine, fruits, maybe alcohol, etc. And that may be creating problems. The feet are much better at showing how much yang food people are eating. So if people are eating a lot of eggs, meat, animal fats, cheese, dairy foods, etc., and there's too much fat and protein, then this tends to go down and shows up in the feet, particularly as areas of thickened, hard, dead skin. It might be on top of the foot, it might be on top of the toes, it might be on the arch of the foot, sides of the big toe, or it might be on the sole of the feet. You just get a lot more of this thick skin. Something just happened to my computer. Different parts of the feet relate to different parts of the body. The heels especially relate to the lower abdomen and therefore the reproductive organs. So unfortunately, when we eat a lot of those dense animal foods, they tend to go, they might affect the heart, they're going to affect the liver, and they tend to affect the reproductive organs a lot. So in women, the ovaries, the uterus, the cervix, and in men, especially the prostate. And it's eating an excess of these animal foods that creates a lot of problems in that area, like prostate enlargement, prostate cancer, ovarian cysts, fibroids, heavy, painful periods, a lot of bleeding, clotting blood, etc. So a lot of problems in that part of the body from eating these excess animal foods, abnormal cervical cells, cervical cancer, etc. So having a lot of hard, dead skin on the feet, especially on the heels, is showing there may well be a lot of accumulation in that lower part of the body, which is not great news. So I think, as you say, it's a common problem because in the West people are eating, for the last 50, 60 years anyway, we've eaten a lot of animal food. Before then, less so. People didn't have so much money. Meat and dairy foods were eaten in small amounts. People were mostly eating bread and vegetables and beans and so on. So really, if people want to heal that, they need to cleanse the inside of their body especially helping their liver, and eating a more plant-based diet and helping the body to discharge all that excess animal fats and protein. Then our feet become, we lose a lot of the hard dead skin on our feet, and our feet kind of look nicer, look healthier. Okay, hi Liz, good to have you here again. Bianca, emotional stress, heat, okay. So I need to chill out too. Thanks, I will take anything to help. Yes, good to chill out. Good to express any frustrations or strong feelings that you're holding. If you can kind of de-stress your body, your life to some extent, reduce the sources of stress in your life. And then what the liver likes is really light, cooling foods, especially a lot of light vegetables. So a lot, salad, pressed salads, blanched vegetables, steamed greens, sour tastes from using things like lemon juice, vinegars, vegetable pickles, sauerkraut, vegetable juices, cucumber, just slices of cucumber, on your plate. Nice kind of cooling, opening foods like that can help take the heat out of the liver. All right, nice to have you join, Marika, Sarah Jane, Michael. So Rita, you're saying that turmeric is good for cracked heels. Okay, I didn't know that, so that's a good tip. And then Taoist Om, you're asking about a fungal nail infection. Treated over 15 months ago, but now experiencing tingling foot, heat, tightness, and digestive problems. Reluctant to have antibiotics. So I'm wondering if you're associating that the kind of digestive problems and tightness and heat and so on with the fungus. Fungal nail infections, they can take quite a while to heal up, but in general, you could say that with fungal infections in the body, if you think about where you find fungi in nature, if you go outside and find fungi, they like to grow. They grow in damp places. They really need dampness. They just can't grow in a dry environment. So when we create a more damp environment, internal environment in our bodies and in our skin and in our nails, that's what kind of lets fungi take a hold. And whether that's ringworm, which we can get on different parts of the skin, or athlete's foot between the toes, and also a fungal nail infection. So foods which create excess dampness in the body are especially what in macrobiotics we term yin liquids. Caffeinated drinks, sugary drinks, fruit juices, smoothies, which made with fruits, vegetable juices, more okay. But especially a lot of fruit juices, coconut milks, excess, a little bit of plant milk's okay, but really a lot of plant milk is not a good thing either. It could be alcohol as well. So this also sugar creates excess dampness in the body. So too many of those kind of foods creates dampness. So we need to dry the body out by stopping those foods, not over drinking liquids. A lot of people think we need to drink more liquid, the more the better. Actually, let's not over drink liquids, and for liquid, let's drink more balanced liquids, maybe some mild herbal teas, mint, chamomile, etc. Grain coffees, bancha tea or cookie cha tea, traditional in Japan and the Far East, has a little more of a drying effect on the body. And then just eating whole foods, whole beans, whole vegetables, root vegetables, some drier methods to help dry the body out, and gradually over time, that can help get rid of fungal infections, but it does tend to take quite a while. I think antibiotics. In my experience of people who've taken antibiotics for fungal infection, nail fungal infections, they really don't do very much. They're a bit of a kind of a last-ditch, treatment from Western medicine, because they, if nothing else is working. But in my experience, sometimes they help, but very often they don't help at all. So Christine, small red dots beginning on the abdomen, excess of bromine. Well, I haven't heard that, and I'm wondering what you're meaning by small red dots. I wonder if you mean small, like little raised red dots, which are kind of raised, which are a little in the skin. In Oriental medicine, if it's those, Oriental medicine says that they are created when we have a weakness in our spleen energy, or spleen pancreas energy. So the organs in Oriental medicine have a lot more functions than just the physical ones, which we're used to. So the spleen and pancreas, the pancreas is producing digestive enzymes and insulin. The spleen is cleaning the blood, has a lot of white blood cells in, breaks down old red blood cells, has white blood cells, immune cells in. But also they say that this is a very kind of gathering energy. They're nourished with a gathering energy which helps hold things in place. It helps hold the organs in place. You've probably never thought that the organs need holding in place, but the Orientals, they thought about everything. So everything needs to be held in place. And if the spleen energy becomes low, then also we can suffer from prolapse. Our large intestine can drop, the uterus can drop, the anus can drop, and then we really know about unpleasant problems. So that would be seen as the spleen energy becoming chronically low. Also, the spleen holds the blood in the blood vessels. And so these red spots are seen where the spleen energy has been weak for a long time. And then the blood is not being held in the blood vessels, and it can come out and form these little red dots. From between kind of 1 millimeter and maybe 4 or 5 millimeters. The excess of bromine, I haven't heard that, and I'm not sure what we would get an excess of bromine from. They're really quite common, again, as people get older, and as we get older, it gets more challenging to look after our health. Yeah, Christine, you said yes, raised. So it's sounding like these little red dots. And I can't remember. There's a term for them in Western medicine, which I can't quite remember what it is right now. And Amal, you are asking about feeling heat under your skin in your arms and tummy. So this is probably coming from inside your body, from holding tension somewhere internally in your body. Very often that's the liver. Sometimes it can be the stomach. Occasionally it can be the heart. But it suggests that you're holding tension, which is producing heat kind of deeply in your body. And this is coming out and creating the heat under the skin, in your tummy, and also in your arms. Sherry, good to have you here again. So we've been talking a lot about different skin problems and what causes skin problems and how we can help skin problems. and you're asking a different question: how to help people stop eating animals. That's an interesting question. I think there's probably a lot of different ways. I think one thing is that when people become, how do we say this, more kind of conscious, more health conscious, and more making a connection between what they put in their bodies and how they feel emotionally and mentally and spiritually. And often people really want to eat much less animals. So in many traditions around the world, they've recognized that if people are wanting to develop themselves, especially spiritually, it's good to eat very little or no animal food, because animal food has a very dense energy, and it creates a lot of heat and energy in the body, which tends to make us feel active and restless. And then it's more difficult to meditate or to perceive the kind of finer levels of energy, of spirit. So one way, I think, I'm interested in consciousness and awareness and spiritual development. Another way is through the mind. There is so much evidence now that eating animal foods is harmful for the health. I'm not in my office right now, so I can't pull it out right now. But if you Google NHS, National Health System Service, Eat Well Guide, they come up with a diagram of what the NHS is now advocating as the healthiest way of eating, and it is plant-based. It is 1/3 whole grains and complex carbohydrates. It's 1/3 vegetables and fruit. Then there's a small section for protein, and it's saying eat less meat and animal foods, eat more beans and a little fish. But it's saying eat more beans and pulses. And then the final section, small section, is dairy foods or alternatives. So fantastic that at last they're realizing that dairy foods are not essential for health. So up until 4 years ago, they were advising everybody eats dairy foods because they're good for you, because they contain calcium, ignoring the fact that they also contain lactose, sugar, which upsets some people's digestion, and a lot of fats. And eating a lot of fats contributes to a whole host of different health problems. So also another book, again I don't have it here, I can't pull it out to show you, for people who really like science, the China study by very well-known Colin Campbell, American nutritionalist. He goes through the effects of eating a lot of animal foods, and shows how it's very linked with heart disease, cancers, breast cancer, for example. And really we need to be eating a plant-based diet. So maybe giving people good information, intellectual information. Some people appealing more emotionally, showing people what happens in the animal trade, the killing of animals, and when people see what happens to animals and abattoirs, they may make a more of an emotional or conscious decision that they want to kill less animals. Some people have a much more social conscious, about the world, about global warming, about the destruction of the environment, and for some reason, for some people, that is a main reason for stopping eating animals. The destruction of the Amazonian rainforest is mostly to either graze cattle or to grow soybeans, which are then shipped to Europe, North America, China, etc., to feed animals. So we're destroying the Earth's environment and greatly contributing to global warming through eating a lot of animals. So that's a range of ways. Of course, some people will not want to change their ways. So I think we have to find the people that are more, on the on the edge. They're becoming more conscious of health, more conscious of what they're doing, more conscious of the environment, maybe more conscious of the spiritual world. And those kind of people, talking to those kind of people in an encouraging way. Maybe another way as well is by cooking some great plant-based food for people. Whether that's main courses, desserts, just showing people how good plant-based food can be. Because for a lot of people, if they're used to eating eggs and meat, and they think, well, no eggs and meat, then what do I eat? Where do I get my protein? Where do I get my calcium? And if you make them some great bean dishes and tofu dishes and whatever, hummuses and pates and grains, and make really nice food, then I think that can also really help people to realize that actually they feel great not eating animals, and they can have a nice meal and they feel light and energetic and not heavy afterwards. So maybe cooking meals, some good plant-based meals for people as well. So I hope that gives you some ideas, Sherry. Good question. Amal, you were asking about alkaline diet, a lot of smoothies and juices, etc. Yeah, alkaline diet. So many different diets around, and a lot of them start off with, quite a good idea, and then they base their whole theory just on that one idea, and they ignore just about everything else. So the alkaline diet really is one of these. Yes, overall our diet needs to be more. So we need predominantly alkaline forming foods, and if we eat a few mildly acid forming foods, that's okay, as long as we're eating more alkaline forming foods. Actually, the easiest way of doing this is by eating what I always kind of come back to, which is a plant-based, whole food, local diet. Because if we eat a whole food, local diet, that is best for the health, and it's the foods which are most acid forming are the foods which are high in protein. In macrobiotics we'd call yang foods: meat, eggs, cheese, chicken, etc. They contain a lot of protein. These break down to create strong acids in the body. Also at the other extreme, more yin foods such as sugar, possibly caffeine, refined carbohydrates, cakes, etc. also create acid. So these are the foods which actually really aren't good for us for all kinds of different reasons. So if we go more to the center of the yin-yang scale, whole plant foods, whole grains, beans, lots of vegetables, some fruits, sea vegetables, etc. This will be alkalizing. So it's not necessary to eat loads of smoothies and juices. So it's taking a simple idea and then taking it to the extreme. Fruits and vegetables are alkaline, therefore I need to have lots of this in order to alkalize. But as I was just saying, earlier on in discussing about skin problems, if people have skin problems like a lot of redness or eczema, eating a lot of fruits and juices can make that worse. A lot of it, also weakens the lungs. It can make hay fever worse, asthma worse, breathing problems worse, can weaken the large intestine, etc. A lot of sugars and smoothies and fruit juices really bump up the blood sugar level, increases insulin resistance, contributes to diabetes, etc. So instead, if you want to eat an alkaline forming diet, then Let's eat whole grains. Okay, whole grains, apart from millet, millet is more alkaline forming, but most whole grains are slightly acid forming on their own. However, in macrobiotics, we cook them with a little salt. Salt and minerals are highly alkalizing. Then, in macrobiotics, we make condiments, which we put on our grains and other food. So my very first macrobiotic class, miso soup and gamassia, or sesame salt, a mixture of salt and roasted sesame seeds. Very high in minerals, so this is alkalizing. So already we're alkalizing those grains, and then we're going to eat them with a lot of different vegetables. Maybe 50% of our plate is vegetables, all very alkalizing. Then eat a certain amount of seaweeds. Seaweeds contain really a lot of minerals, 10 to 20 times more minerals than land vegetables. So sea vegetables are about the most alkalizing food you can eat. And yet they're more balanced. They don't weaken the lungs, they don't weaken the kidneys, etc. So rather than having loads of juice, smoothies and juices, much better to just eat sea vegetables every day. Also, a healthy amount of salt and salty seasonings, also very alkalizing. So in the Orient, there's the tradition of having miso soup. So you've got miso, which has been fermented for over a year, contains a reasonable amount of salt, sea vegetables and vegetables. So you're drinking mineral-rich hot liquid. That is very alkalizing. And in the Orient, they have miso soup every day, or a shoyu broth or a tamari broth every day. Or if you want to, you can just make a soup with salt, but very good to put sea vegetables in, or with herb salt. You know, the same thing. It's liquid with a lot of minerals in, so that's very alkalizing. Grains with salt and condiments, vegetables, condiments, sea vegetables, also vegetable proteins. Also, some of those are also mildly acid forming. But we're not eating tons of beans, we're eating tons of vegetables and a little fruit and minerals and everything to help balance that out. And that will create a good alkaline condition in your body. So I hope that's helpful around alkaline. It's kind of, it just so saddens me the way there's so much confusion because there's such a plethora of different diets around at the moment, and a lot of them start off with a core good idea, and then they just think that one idea is going to make everybody healthy. If you just eat an alkaline diet, you won't get any health problems. You can cure any illness, which is just so simplistic and naive. We need a more complex, in-depth way of food and health. Which personally I find macrobiotics, Oriental medicine, I find that a very good understanding. And if we add in some Western understanding of nutrients as well, then I think that's a very good combination. So Nikki, good to have you here. So China Study is an extremely informative book. You were hooked on it when you read it. Would highly recommend reading it too. Yep, and it's good to give to people who are quite scientifically minded and quite skeptical. One of my favorite photographs in there I love showing people is two pictures. First picture is of a particular artery in a doctor's heart who had arteriosclerosis, and you can see the shape of the artery in the heart, and you can see part of it is almost completely closed. Rather than going for heart surgery, having a stent or a bypass or something, he went on an almost vegan diet. 18 months later, second photograph, that artery was completely clear. So in 18 months through, he cleared the arteriosclerosis in his artery. So things like that can be very convincing for people, I think. And yes, a great documentary. What the Health? I haven't seen that one. I shall have to look out for that one. What the Health? Yeah, that's a good title. Angela's welcome. Alex, Chia Seeds. Any comment on these as they become really popular addition to people's diets with the whole smoothie revolution? Are they particularly yang? Are they high in good fats and minerals? If I use them, I soak them overnight first. Personally, I'm not very interested in them because, for one thing, they're part of this whole movement that, you know, if you just eat chia seeds or you just eat one food or one supplement or super greens or whatever it is, that's going to solve all your health problems. And it doesn't. You know, it may help a little bit, but if we really want to look after our health, we need to look at everything we're eating and everything we're doing in our life. And you know, if just adding one food, I think is not especially helpful. Also, I want to do some research and find out where chia seeds come from. You know, I'm pretty sure they don't come from Europe. I'm pretty sure they come from quite a long way away, maybe Asia. And really, we need to be thinking about eating more local foods rather than getting these foods, you know, from a long way away. And you know, God, nature has given us what we need in our local environment. Nettles have very high in minerals, and they have a nice cleansing effect. Let's go and pick the tops of nettles and make some nettle soup. That will really do us a lot of good. It's free, and you know, rather than buying algae from, you know, blue-green algae that come from Hawaii, you know, why do we need blue-green algae from Hawaii? It's like, you know, we have greens, we have fat hen and broccoli and just greens and cabbages and all kinds of wonderful greens full of minerals growing outside our houses. So yeah, let's look at our whole diet, our whole lifestyle, and let's look at, you know, what foods are growing locally. So I'm sorry, that's my kind of take on chia seeds. I think they are good. They're quite good on minerals, and I think they have healthy fats in. But you know, so does sunflower seeds, sesame seeds, pumpkin seeds, good quality cold press oils. You know, and these things which come more from Europe. Yeah, so that's my opinion. So interesting to know whether you agree with me or not. If I use them, I soak them overnight first, and fruit-wise, I'd only put a few berries in a smoothie. Yeah, I think if you're making a smoothie, then only a few berries. Also question smoothies, because I think slow foods are good for the body. Slow foods are whole foods, which is what we've been eating for the last few million years. We're eating whole plants, whole seeds, etc. And they break down slowly through our digestive system, and we get a slow release. We get a slow release of sugars, slow release of fats, proteins, oils, you know, minerals, etc. And they're slowly absorbed into the bloodstream in a way that the body can really make good use of them. When we make smoothies, we're breaking the plant cells up, and so, okay, in some ways we're making those nutrients more available, but also our body's getting a sudden hit of them, you know, including for people that put a lot of fruit in their smoothies, a lot of fruit sugar. They get a sudden hit. Surprising, people can feel good because they're getting a hit of sugar. So while we might enjoy a smoothie, or I think vegetable juices sometimes, you know, I think it's absolutely fine to think that we need smoothies and that they're a healthy thing to do, and we throw in all kinds of maca and this and that, I think is really unhelpful, and it's really more of a fatty thing. And I think really we need to eat more slow foods. I think the body likes slow foods. It produces more long-term stamina and brings energy deep in the body to create more stamina and long-term energy, strong immune system, etc. Rather than this kind of quick energy and more yin foods, which brings a lot of energy to the surface of the body, actually weakens the lungs, which are a really important part of our immune system, weakens the mucous membrane, which is needing to keep out viruses and bacteria. Yeah, so that's my take on smoothies. South American chia, okay, that's interesting. So I didn't know where they came from, but come from a more kind of tropical climate as well. Amal, you're asking, is it good for the skin to take omega-3 oil? So I think it's good for the skin and in other ways to have to eat a reasonable amount of omega-3 oils. As good to get them from food. Always good to get nutrients from food first of all. So we can get omega-3s from eating seeds, good quality plant oils, also from oily fish. So really better to have them from those sources rather than taking omega-3 oil. Really for the same reason again. If we eat seeds, I can't remember what percentage of oil they are. You know, it's high. Is it 50%? I don't know if anybody knows. They contain a lot of oils, but they're combined in the seed. And first of all, we need to chew the seeds. If you don't chew your seeds, you see them coming out in your poo. So we need to chew our seeds, and then our digestive juices work on them, and those omega-3s come slowly into the body in a way that the body can really use. If we pour omega-3 oil on our food, then our body's getting sudden oil, and it's quite difficult to break down that oil. First of all, that oil has to be broken down into tiny, tiny droplets so the body can digest it. And if you look at your poo when you've been to the toilet, if you're adding oil to your food, you'll almost certainly see on the surface of the water, you'll see a layer of oil. Because a lot of that oil has just gone straight through. So better to eat seeds, some nuts, and also to cook with oil. If we're frying vegetables, tofu, other foods in a little bit of oil, that oil combines with the food, and then again it's just very slowly broken down, and the body tends to use all of it, and you don't get that oiliness in the toilet. So I'd say that's the best way to get your omega-3s. So welcome, Luigi. Alex, really helpful thoughts. Okay, I'm glad you like it. Somehow we've got here through millions of years of evolution without loads of supplements and special foods and importing foods. I only realized fairly recently, this whole thing about eating locally and eating foods from our own climate, which Macrobiotics has always said, and a lot of chefs like Jamie Oliver are saying it now. Up till probably a couple of hundred years ago, nearly everybody in the world ate local foods from their own climate because there wasn't mass transportation around the world. Certainly before a couple of thousand years ago, everybody was eating local, seasonal foods. It wasn't possible to be eating foods from the other side of the world or from other continents. And we survived. We got here eating local seasonal foods. So really, this is the core of eating healthily. And I agree that sometimes when people's intestines have become really in poor shape and other illnesses, that sometimes short-term supplements and things can be useful. But they're not a necessity for our long-term health. Of course, the companies selling them would like us to think that, because then if they can sell us it every day for the rest of our lives, then then they're going to sell more. But I think we need to not buy into that. And if we need them short term, if people suddenly find they've got really low iron, eat more iron-rich foods, and you might want to take some Florodics or something like that short term to help boost it. But if we can improve our health and improve the health of the intestines, especially, then really long term. I think one of the reasons why there are a lot of supplements around now is that the modern Western processed high sugar diet has been very destructive for the intestines. So people's absorption and food absorption, many people has become very poor. And this is why so many people have food allergies and intolerances. If we have a really healthy digestive system, we can eat almost anything. Not necessarily every day, but once or twice we can eat almost anything and we'll be able to digest it. But people's digestive systems become so sensitive, and and a whole branch of Chinese medicine consider all illness starts in the intestines. So the first thing to do to achieve health is to have healthy intestines. And to do that, what do we need to do? We need to eat a plant-based, whole food, seasonal diet, to chew well, and to exercise so that we're breathing deeply, which helps our digestion. Amal, can you have the video as the broadcast was interrupted all the time? So the recording of this will appear on the the school Facebook page in, I don't know, an hour or so or something like that. So you can I won't have it, but it'll appear on the Facebook page. Okay, we've been going for over an hour, so I wonder if you have any other questions, or if not, then this is the place to end. So I'd like to thank you all for coming, and also just to say that tomorrow I'm going to start another online series of cooking classes, 10 till 11:30 tomorrow morning, a series of 5 classes. So if you want to see how to put some of these principles into practice, then go onto the website and look for the healthy eating classes, and you can book onto it, and it would be great tomorrow morning in my cooking class. So it's good to talk about all these things, but in the end it comes down to putting it into practice. So if that would be helpful, please do check that out. So Alex, you're saying something in when it gets dry is a little white oily fish-like place with some vegetables, an instant skin remedy. Okay, yeah, that feels, well, that's very interesting. Yep, and place a local. Dana Banana, great to have you here. Unfortunately, we're just about to finish. You can listen to the recording, which will appear on this Facebook page, on the school Facebook page, in, I don't know, half an hour to an hour. So I hope you'll join another time, Dana, and hope to see you sometime. Okay, so thank you all very much for joining this evening, and I look forward to seeing you again. So I'll be here next Tuesday, 8:20. Please come along with your questions. Great questions tonight. Makes it really interesting for everybody. It means we can give a lot of good information to people. And do check out our online courses, which are a range of online courses which we're running at the moment. Okay, good night.